what really broke my burnout is recognizing that I am lying to myself. I'm very conveniently lying to myself, because what happens when I lie to myself in this way is that I have my burnout, my signals, my symptoms at an arm's distance. I can just keep them out there while I keep making things happen over here. And I'm just going, going, going. If there's no quiet, if there's no rest, if there's no pause, then I never see the signals. I never see the symptoms for what they actually are, because I'm always waiting to arrive. Hey, I'm Kim.
And I'm Pancho. And you're listening to Now That You See It, a show that will ruin you for boring conversations forever.
It's about the invisible stuff that shapes how we think and connect, those, oh, wait, what? Moments that change how you perceive the world around you.
Once you see it, you can't unsee it. And
yeah, I wonder if our fans wonder what our big brains talk about behind the scenes, because
yeah,
let us reveal that behind the scenes, we're just talking about our vacuum preferences.
talking about the pros and cons.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. It's a divisive topic in my household.
Yeah. And what counts as clean and how often? Totally.
Yeah.
Get my children here, and they will have opinions. For sure.
We should, if you're willing to bring your kids on the podcast, that'd be a hilarious thing to do one day.
They would have thoughts.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
All right, my friend, we've got a fun topic for folks today. A single topic that we're gonna stick to all the time. We're gonna ramble into little coves and stuff, but we're gonna come back to the spine of our topic, which is, tell us what we're talking about today.
It's the arrival fallacy. So it's this term that was coined by Dr. Tal Ben Shahar, and I'm looking off to the side here because I didn't know that until earlier today. Yeah,
I did not.
So and he is a figure in positive psychology, which falls right in line with our training and coaching, which is all based on positive psychology, primarily coming out of UPenn, the work of Marty Seligman and everything that's perpetuated from there. So that's the way that you and I both learned how to coach, is from that perspective. And what it is the fallacy, the erroneous belief that you will be happy when. If only blank, I would be happy. Or when I get blank, I will be happy. When I get the promotion, everything will be great. Or if only I could find a person to share my life with. If only I had a romantic partner, I would be happy. If only I had enough money, I would be happy. So there are all of these things that we tell ourselves, if I had that, life would just be good. And it's not true. It's a way that we think into the future. It's very related to the hedonic treadmill and the hedonic effect, which is, once you get the thing, then you very quickly adapt to whatever the thing is, and you go back to your habitual emotional steady state. So there may be a quick high, like a big dopamine hit of, okay, finally achieved this thing, but that doesn't stick around. And so that's the arrival fallacy, that when I arrive, everything will be better. That's not actually the case.
Have you heard that study about the happiness? They studied the happiness level pre and post lottery winnings, and then pre and post accidents for quadriplegics. That and 6 months after the events, the respective events, they had the same level of happiness.
Totally.
Wild. Isn't that wild?
It is.
And honestly, it's one of the things I think about, speaking of like things you see and then you can't unsee. I think about this all the time, because I am so susceptible to the arrival fallacy. I mean, you teach what you got to learn. I teach this all the time. And it's like one of the things that links arms with burnout and just like in cahoots keeps it going. But before I get into all my stories, how has it come up for you? Because you were like pre-recording, you had some like wild, cool, leggy takes on this.
On the arrival fallacy. Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, it comes up for me personally, it comes up for me a lot in terms of career, right? I have a habit of the way this happens for me is I oversimplify what the future is going to look like.
Mm.
And I just focus on the thing that I'm envisioning will change. And my
I do
brain
that
doesn't
too.
take into account the
Oh
entire
dear.
context of the rest of my life that has just, like a much
Blind leading the blind.
bigger.
Yeah.
Exactly. So there is there's a name for that bias, um, which I'm blanking on right now, but it's the bias that when something is prevalent to you, you focus on that and you don't take into
Oh.
consideration everything that happens around it in the context of the entirety of your life, right? So that's how the arrival fallacy shows up for me. If only work wasn't as stressful, everything else would fall into place. Or if I had the money, everything else would be taken care of. Um, One that is to some degree true for me was when I find the right person to share my life with,
Mm.
it'll be
Mm,
it'll
to
be
some
better.
degree true.
To
Yeah.
some degree true, right?
Mhm.
It's not a panacea, but I often will take a step back and take full inventory of my life and recognize that Steph is a really great partner for me. And it feels good to recognize, okay, at least that part of my life is really squared away in a way that supports and benefits me as a person and kind of bolsters everything else that's happening. Um, so so yeah, it's not like a black and white thing, right? It's more just the simplification of if this one thing was taken care of, then all my problems would be solved. Um, in my work, coaching, usually what it looks like is if I got the promotion or if I got to work at my dream job
Mhm.
or if if only like my manager wasn't my manager and I had a different manager who was more compatible with my communication style. If only the company didn't go chasing after every shiny thing that gets put in front of an executive team, then we wouldn't be facing quarterly whiplash on priorities. So there are all of these things that in their work life, people will say, that's the cause of all my pain. That's at the root of all of the problems. And if only that would go away, then everything would be much easier. Everything would be better. Oftentimes, that's not the case.
Yeah. Oftentimes it's not. I'm really curious. We should get into times in which it is the case, though, like break the arrival fallacy and make it the arrival truth, whatever the opposite is
Sure.
of like, in which cases are you like, you're not wrong to think that like things might get better or things might change when. But like, how do you hold the fallacy part and how do you separate it from like, no, you should have goals, have visions, have dreams,
Mhm. Mhm.
assume that these are worth pursuing, but how do you distinguish what's an arrival fallacy from just like go for the good stuff? Yeah, dream big.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like with Steph, like we know that the choice of partner is one of the most foundational, pivotal, important choices you make in your life. Its effect on your
Mhm.
social health, your physical health, your mental health, your earnings, your happiness. There's nothing that compares to the quality of that choice and how it fits you and how it fits your growth. So, like, it does make sense that when you find somebody that checks those boxes for you, both literally and like in the metaphorical sense, this is um things should get better. Like there should be something good that's coming out of this for you. And it's not everything. Like it's not going to solve all the baggage that is left unprocessed that is just yours. It's not going to solve anything else, any external circumstances that are causing dissatisfaction and unhappiness. But it ain't nothing.
Yeah. Yeah. Totally. I'm curious about you. I mean, in your
Mm,
work, in your life,
mm,
how do you see this come up? Because this was actually a topic you surfaced as something that keeps
Mm.
coming up for you,
Mhm.
and now that you've seen it, you can't unsee it, so,
Yeah.
yeah,
I
how's that
think
showing up?
it's a huge part of my coaching with folks who are, overwhelmed, who are, like, entrepreneurs, high achieving folks, who want to find a sense of peace, but also achievement at the same time. Like, I want sustainable success. Um, it e everybody that I work with, almost truly, I think it is actually everybody that I've worked with, has a challenging relationship to rest. Mostly it's, "I'll rest when, I'll regenerate when, the business is stable, the income's coming in, the everyone's taken care of, everyone's happy, like, the food's all put away, da, da." And rather than seeing regeneration and rest as something that fuels that end, that, like, that end actually won't ever come. It just doesn't arrive in a way that's satisfying, and, like, yeah, you may be able to, like, literally get to a place of, like, "Okay, that's done," but, like, you create new things, you see new messes to clean up, and you just keep going and going and going until you are forced to rest, whether you want to or not. So, it comes up in coaching, but as you know, as a coach, like, we coach the people who are us 3 years ago, 2 6 months ago, an hour ago. This is I find that I teach what I need to learn, and the stuff that just, like, the clients bring up, I'm like, "Oh, yeah, right. I need a my own lesson on this, like, a deepening on it." Because for me, arrival fallacy is what, kept me from seeing my burnout for so long, and because it's honestly the other part of me that these, like, parts, they work in like a little team, like, they link arms and they just burnout is a normal biophysiological response to too much, like, it's just your body working as it should, and I will die on the hill. This is these symptoms aren't random, they're meant to slow you down, all this stuff. And there are certain beliefs that keep you from seeing these symptoms as signals, and one of them is the arrival fallacy. And the other that got me is the human what's the word? It's the human tendency, need, craving to close loops, finish things, put the puzzle together. Like, we
Mm,
have a hard time when things are left undone. Like, we just can't stop thinking about them. Like, we really, really, really get so much dopamine when we close a task. And the combination of that, like, dopamine seeking task closing behavior with the arrival fallacy of I won't be happy until, and you're like, I need to close that task. I need to get there. I need to arrive to get happy, to get dopamine. The,
yeah,
and then the fact that that arrival actually never happens, like, maybe you get that promotion and then 2 days later, you're like, what's my next one? Or like, oh my God, I have so much work. I cannot survive this promotion. The satisfaction never actually comes. And so we're perpetually trying to close unclosable loops. Hello, burnout.
yeah.
So that comes up, and that has come up for me like throughout my life. And truly, it was only what my therapist was like, "You've said this 75,000 times. It's just right now. It's just right now that it's hard. Busy season, or like it's just hard for this person right now. Like it'll get better. It's always hard this time." And she's like, "At what point was it easy? At what never. It was never easy." Because I make it hard. I add things in because busy feels safe. And so, and like fixing other people felt safe. Having something to worry about felt safe because I was always going, 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 and thinking like, once I solve that problem for them, it'll be fine. Once I, like get through the season, it'll be fine. And so, what really broke a big part of what really broke my burnout is recognizing that I am lying to myself. And I'm very conveniently lying to myself because what happens when I lied to myself in this way is that I have my burnout, my signals, my symptoms at an arm's distance. I don't really see them. They don't like, I just can just keep them out there while I keep making things happen over here. And I'm just going, going, going. If there's no quiet, if there's no rest, if there's no pause, then I never see the signals. I never see the symptoms for what they actually are because I'm always waiting to arrive.
So you're distracting yourself from what it's actually like to be you, to the degree that by keeping yourself busy, to the degree you don't notice that you're a barely operational dumpster fire. So, like,
Yeah.
be really, blunt
Yeah.
about it. Huh.
Totally. And that's, I mean, I think the arrival fallacy is this, it is this like, it's like a slot machine. You are always waiting for that fix and that hit, and you always think it's right around the corner. And if you play one more round, it's coming. Intermittent rewards, email,
Yeah.
Instagram, any of the stuff. Like if I just scroll 100 times, 5 of those I might get something cool, and that next one, it's on my next scroll. Okay, it wasn't that one. Maybe it's on my next one. Maybe it's on my next one. And that's how arrival fallacy tends to work in burnout recovery and resilience land, is helping people see that they're aiming for goalposts that are perpetually moving. Like they are little hamsters on a treadmill, and
Totally.
it's just they're never arriving, right? It's like a lot of random motion in place as opposed to purposeful momentum. And that dream big, achieve, like go for big things. Make sure that you are celebrating on the way, because there is no part of the world that's going to give you the flowers that actually settle into your body and feel rewarding and happy. Nobody else is going to give you the award that you're like, I did it, I'm set, and for the rest of my life, I'm at peace. I'm good.
Yeah. Yeah.
That will come from you, and the actual like happiness of that arrival will extend out if you're able to just internally recognize it along the way, like presence in the moment along the way.
Yeah.
It's really, I could talk about this all day long, because man, like the inner critic comes in, wants you to keep you on your toes, never settle, keep that arrival just like far off, far off, far off. You're not good enough. And it just, all these parts are just, they're on a team doing stuff to you, getting that burnout just like nailed down until you see it. And then it's hard to unsee it.
Yeah. Earlier, as you were talking, the thing that came to mind for me was I coach with a lot of people who are, for lack of a better way to talk about it, in middle management. I feel like middle management is
Mm,
kind of a four-letter word, right? But they are the senior managers, the directors, the VPs of an organization. And one way in which people in that level of an organization can show up in coaching is, I want to be a more strategic leader. I want to have more influence. And to do that, I need to make my way higher in the org chart.
oh,
And
yeah.
so I need, if I am an associate VP, I need to just be a VP, or I need to figure out how to break into the C suite. As a senior manager, how do I become a director? When I get there, I will have more influence. I
Mm,
will have more say about what we do. I will be able to stand as an example of the culture that I think we should have,
mm,
that I see lacking as I try to support the people who are my direct reports doing the work on the ground. And in the same breath, they'll say, and I also want to make sure that I stay grounded and that I protect my peace of mind. And then I'll ask them, great, what's it like for the people who are already in those roles in your organization? And they go, oh, yeah, they're all burnt out. They
right.
all are sending emails at 2 a.m. Like those people don't have peace of mind. And there's almost a little bit of like a not seeing the glaring conflict between, like what a tightrope they're going to have to walk to both step into that leadership role and be really successful in achieving their dream of having more influence, setting strategic direction, and also maintaining their home life, making sure they still spend
Mm,
time with their family, making sure they get enough sleep, not becoming absorbed in the identity of their job.
totally.
And it's just a difficult thing to, sometimes there's no right solution. It's just a matter of trial and error.
You know, it's also making me think, and I wonder if you're seeing this too, um, that there's like a savior complex in there of like, if they just put me in charge, I wouldn't be the one who's creating this stupid toxic culture. Like, get me in there. Like, coach, put me in. I got
Yeah,
this. Is that coming up for people? It sounds like there's threads of it there.
I think there's definitely some of that. Yeah, and it comes back to something we talk about a lot, which is arguing with reality. Wanting in the same way that in a romantic relationship you think you can fix your partner as a single employee in a company, thinking that you're going to be the one to fix the culture. That's a big aspiration, and maybe you are able to make a dent in it, but for the most part, the weight of the organization as a whole usually wins out, and people decide whether they need to leave or stay depending on what happens after they run some experiments to determine if, once they actually get there,
Yeah.
it ends up being what they thought it would be.
It reminds me of how often, this is both from personal experience and just human beings, how how often we stay in things and with things, jobs, relationships, all kinds of things, just situations that don't fit because we can't see that they don't fit, but we've got like some external goal to hit there. And like the pursuit of that external goal, whether it's years at the company or like vesting in your retirement account or the promotion or just like, I want to complete this project. It at what cost, man? At what cost? It does it take out of you to actually get to that goal? And what's happening in between? And like these are real, you know, life is not a dress rehearsal. These are real years of your life that you're living and losing, being in a space that's no good. No good for you.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's something I was thinking about earlier. Actually, I knew we were going to talk about this. And from the perspective of behavioral economics and Danny Kahneman, who's technically not an economist, he was a psychologist. Danny Kahneman brings up the idea that, or at least he passed away recently. So he brought up the idea,
Hmm.
kind of a personal
That's
hero,
right.
that there are two selves that we think about when we perceive ourselves. There is the experiencing self. What is it to be me right now having this experience? And there's the narrative self. How do I think about myself when I tell myself the story of my life? And so that narrative self is the kind of narrative self, is the kind of self you think of when you ask yourself, what kind of person do I want to be?
Mm.
And I think when you look at big picture life goals, and you think of your life as a series of accomplishments, almost like, like medals or trophies to accumulate, that would be the narrative self. That would be telling yourself the story of your life as a way of understanding who you are as a person. And that aspect of the self can more easily fall for the arrival fallacy because you're
Yeah.
less invested in what it's like to be right now, and you're more invested in what your obituary says on paper,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So, from a behavioral economics point of view, there is the benefit of achieving whatever that moment in time is. If you do succeed, there's also the chance that you don't succeed. And there's a cost to recognizing I'm never going to get there, which is a very real cost. You can lose motivation. You could start to doubt yourself and your efficacy to reach other goals. So there's that cost benefit trade off at a particular moment in time, either when you get there or when you realize I'm never getting there. But there's
Mm.
also the cost and the benefit, or in economics, the utility, the value of getting there. What did it cost you? to
Yeah.
get to that one moment in time where you either realize I did it totally, right? And so it costs you things or it could benefit you. There could be value in
Hmm.
it, right? The whole process. And that is more of an experiencing self take on the value of what is my goal and what does it say about me to go after a goal. It's the what it's like day in and day out of
Hmm.
aligning your life towards that goal. And
Yeah.
there's something to be said for, like the way you spend your days is the way you spend your life. And the hedonic effect proves out that when you do get to that one point in time, that's the big goal, that fades really quickly. It's actually not, when you tell the story of your life, it can be a big highlight moment. But when you think about what it was like to be you, it's not that prevalent.
Oh, what it's like to be you. I love this distinction between it's the narrative self and the experiencing self.
Correct.
Also,
Yeah.
this whole podcast show that we're doing, we should dedicate to Danny Kahneman. I love that he's one of
Sure.
your heroes.
Yeah.
I love knowing that about you. And like,
Yeah.
we're gonna do a whole series on all his biases. Um, that's awesome. It also makes me think of it's we've got this experience, like this experiencing versus is it narrating or narrative self?
Narrative self.
So the narrative self tells the story of like, what do I did things, and then what do those things mean to me, right?
Sure. Yeah.
Like, what's the
You could,
story of it? Because
yeah,
it's value neutral. Like, you could tell the story of like, I did things and like, I am bigger than those things. Like, I'm different from those things. Or the narrative self is, I am only those things. I am just my achievements,
sure.
right?
Right.
It makes me think of, David Brooks has this book called The Second Mountain where he talks about, or it might be one of his other books. He's a lot of good books. Eulogy virtues versus resume virtues, and what you want people to talk about at your eulogy. Because they're probably not going to list off your resume there.
Sure.
They're going to list
Yeah.
off, how you affected people and what you did and for people, how you made them feel. And none of those things are generally what we think of when we think of the arrival fallacy. Like, the resume virtues are the achievements that you're aiming for that make you think like, if I do this, and it's not just achievements, right? When we talk about arrival fallacy, it's like when this like um tax season ends, if you're an accountant, I'll be able to rest. Well, that is true. And also all the all the stuff you didn't do during tax season is going to catch up with you. And
Totally.
like da da. Or it's just, if there's a deliverable, there's a this, there's a that, and I'll finally be able to like breathe again. Or I hear all the time, like, if I could just stop the world from spinning. And so it's not just like real things, it's like metaphorical. If the world could just stop spinning for 5 minutes, I could finally catch up. Or if it could just spin like a little slower for me. If I had one more hour on the day, but than everybody else, I could do it. It doesn't have to be real things. It can just be the sense that if one thing changed, it would be okay. And what it what I often help we talk about in coaching is when we are under stress and we feel out of control, we look for anywhere to add control in. And one of the places we try to add control in is simplifying down to, if this one thing changed, if my boss changed, if I got the promotion, if the world stopped spinning, if da 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 da, if we can reduce to simple. And that's another one of his fallacies, right? Is the like binary and black and white thinking. If we just change this one thing, it's just that, then we'd be okay. And it's often not true. There's often many things that need to change internally and externally for you to feel that sustained sense of peace and happiness that you're looking for. And it also removes all the real control that people have over process and puts it only on outcomes. And so it makes me think of Annie Duke has this book called Thinking in Bets. She's a professional poker player, and she wrote a book on like, it's a really good book. And she consults for major corporations now about like, when you are needing to do something important do your effing best. Run a great process and let go of the outcomes. Because if you ran a great process, that's the extent of your control. You can't control the outcomes other than the process. And just getting back to the arrival fallacy, it puts all of the control, our control bucket, shoves it all to outcomes and nothing in process, which is just like a sucky way to live, because then you really are living slot machine life.
Yeah.
Up to chance.
Feels really fragile to me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Thinking about the concept of fragility and anti-fragility.
The same.
And so, yeah. And so the idea that anti-fragility, the opposite of something that's fragile isn't something that's durable, because that thing eventually still breaks down. Even if it's durable, it will fall apart under stress, under pressure. Something that's anti-fragile improves with stress. It improves under pressure. So it feels really fragile to me to say, if this thing happens, then everything will be better. Because what if that thing doesn't happen?
Yeah.
Where does that leave you?
Yeah.
Whereas the focus on process seems more anti-fragile. I pay attention to what it's like to put forth effort. I pay attention to what happens when I run an experiment and I learn from the outcome. And the more stress you expose yourself to with that kind of a mentality, the more your process and your approach, your expertise, your understanding improves, which ultimately leads you to the outcome that you want.
Yeah.
Without the outcome being the important part.
Oh, yeah. Right. You're going to get an outcome. You're more likely to get the outcome you want with a better process. And also, you're just going to get an outcome that is more likely the one that you need with a better process, rather than just like blindly looking for, how do I get there? Like, this is even as simple as like clearing your inbox is something that can trip people up in arrival fallacy land. If I just clear my inbox, are you an inbox zero person, or are you like a 10,000 unread emails in your Gmail kind of person?
I'm the latter, which
I thought you were going to plead the fifth.
I have case of shame about. I almost pled the fifth.
Do you?
I was about to.
You should
A
not.
little bit.
No.
It's not shame. No, it is. It's based on the practical belief that there's going to be something there that I missed. Whereas if I clear it out, then I wouldn't have missed it because I would have gone through each of them.
Mm-hmm.
So it comes back to peace of mind, but in this practical way of like, did I, like 20 emails came in today and I didn't clear all 20. Was the 17th one that I didn't get eyes on an important one?
Oh, yeah, that's interesting. I like inbox zero has always been one of those things that's um, like Marie Kondo, love in theory. Does it spark joy? Hyper minimalism. Do you know what happened when Marie Kondo had kids? She was like, this is really hard.
Oh, no.
She was like, oh, I take that all back.
Oops. Does not apply universally.
Truly. So sometimes I feel like inbox zero, the arrival fallacy of inbox zero, is a thing that like we're gonna finally find peace, but then they just keep rolling in, because then it points to, okay, we got to work on our inbox boundaries. Like, do what's coming in? Do you really need all those emails? And just clearing them doesn't really help you.
Totally.
It gives you a momentary sense of peace, and then just keep coming in. The real solution is like, what's your relationship to email? And similar for just like clearing a to-do list. Like, I get deep satisfaction. I use Todoist. It makes the best sound ever. And it's just every time you clear a task, and like, how fun is that? And I really do feel like I need to get through all the tasks that I assigned myself today sometimes. But as I've been running my own business, realizing I am actually the boss, I'm in charge. Who put this on the list? I did. Goodbye. I don't need to do that. and in helping people reset their nervous systems by allowing them to just like look at to-do lists as a menu of things as opposed to like a mandate. I
Mm,
have also realized like how tightly I had held on to um, the identity of somebody who gets everything done every day that's on the list.
uh,
And what happens when I don't do that? And like, speak of fragility, my identity as a productive human of like, I didn't get anything done today, just, I crumble. I used to. And now it's just really easy for me to say like, oh, I got the most important things done today. Or oops, I didn't. So like, let me make some time tomorrow to do that.
sure.
Yeah. Super
Mm,
fragile.
yeah.
Um, I want to ask you a question about Eastern philosophy and all this arrival
Yeah.
fallacy. Do you feel ready to pivot
Yeah.
to that? Because I have no idea what you're going to say, and I'm very curious.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, yeah, I mentioned before we started recording that there is a there's a completely different way of looking at it, and it comes back to the experiencing self. Um, and I look at it from the perspective of Eastern philosophy because I kind of nerd out on that stuff on the side.
Hmm.
But like modern Western psychology brings it to bear. It's the experiencing self. It's if the goal is peace of mind and joy, peace of mind and happiness, contentment, which is what you've been talking about as the goal. When I get there, I will be happier. I can finally allow myself to rest. Then you don't have to wait. You could just do that now. And
Yes.
you won't be able to do that well when you get there because you literally don't fucking know how.
Mm.
You've not practiced joy and peace of mind in your day to day, and the promotion or buying the house or finding a partner isn't magically going to make you capable
Mm.
of joy and peace of mind. What's going to happen instead is you'll get the dopamine hit of, I accomplished this thing. And then you'll notice there's a void in your life because there's nothing to chase after anymore. And you'll be faced with what you were talking about. I'm distracting myself from the burnout with all of these things that I'm doing. Okay, well, what happens when you get there? What does it actually look like when you look around? It's all of the emotional and behavioral habits that you instilled to get yourself to that outcome without a goal to apply them to. And if those behavioral and emotional habits are a baseline of pervasive dissatisfaction because you've not gotten there yet, you'll still be dissatisfied. And what a lot of people will do is they'll just look for the next thing to go chasing after because then they can once again distract themselves from the fact that they are fundamentally unhappy, that they fundamentally don't have peace of mind, and keep telling themselves that when I get to this other thing, I will get there. So this happens a lot that I've raced bikes. It happens a lot in the world of racing.
Mm.
You have an entire year of training for all of the races you're going to do. And when you're a pro athlete, sure that there's something here, but as an amateur racer, somebody that's just supposed to enjoy riding bikes for fun, to have all of this regimen, there've been years where I spend 10 to 15 hours a week on a bicycle training, not even just riding my bike for fun, training fundamentally unenjoyable because you're breathing through your eyeballs half the time for a bike race. And then you get to the bike race and you do the bike race, and the bike race itself isn't even that fun because you're in the pain cave half the time.
Mm.
And then you get done with the bike race and you're like, cool, I did that. I got a t shirt
Mm.
and nothing in my life has changed. I'm
Mhm.
I'm fit and I know how to suffer physically, but the there is no lasting peace and joy. There's no lasting fulfillment that comes from it. So there is the opportunity to flip this on its head
Mm,
and take a completely different approach. And you already talked about it, right? What if we stop thinking about the outcome?
mhm.
And I heard this approach. It's one that I carried around with me a lot in my 20s. I'd not thought about it for about a decade. But the idea that you do three things: you act on whatever is most exciting to you in the moment.
Mm,
Engage with life in the way that feels the most exciting, that really catches your attention, that you naturally feel propelled to move in that direction. And you do that to the best of your ability while maintaining integrity. Take it as far as you can go. And you have no expectations about what the outcome is going to look like.
yeah. Oh, I love that.
So it shifts it entirely from the narrative self of what is the checklist of things that I need to get done in my life to feel like on paper I am somebody I'm proud of, or like I lived a worthwhile life. And it shifts it to, what is it like to be me right now? And what would I do if I were to just go chase after the thing that I'm absolutely the most excited about to the best of my ability, taking it as far as I can without any attachment to the outcome?
Oh.
And what happens there, I mean, Joe Hudson is also, to make sure that we bring up Joe Hudson in every single one of our episodes.
It's also dedicated to Johnson.
So this is what Joe Hudson brings to the table, right? Show up to work because you love the work, because you're excited to be doing it, because it's something that actually feels fulfilling in process. And the
Yeah.
outcome will be whatever the outcome is. So that's one thing that comes to mind. The Eastern philosophy um, perspective. And I have one other thing to bring to
Mhm.
the table that's more from, like the side of positive psychology. But I'm curious about you when, you've had a lot of exposure to this in thinking about pointing people in the right direction. So let's get away from this whole hamster wheel where you're running in place, burning out, never reaching the goalpost. Instead of doing that, let's do this instead. What does that look like for you and your coach, the people that you coach with?
Oh, that's a great question. You know, just to like I'll come back to that one, but I wanna say on the Eastern philosophy stuff that you brought up, it's so interesting because it feels like the Eastern philosophy take on the arrival fallacy is don't have a narrative self. Just have an experienced self, which would really align with like everything I know about Buddhism, everything I know about just like presence, egolessness, that like the more we cling to the stories that we create, the like humans naturally make meaning, but attaching um attaching attachments to those meanings is a quick way to suffer. And so, like if you're just in the flow, if you're just experiencing, are you subject to the arrival fallacy? Is it when you add the narrative self in there that it becomes a problem?
Really? Yeah, no, I mean, you're totally right. Like when you have a strong attachment to a sense of identity that is not what it's like to be you, but some framework you've, built up about the kind of person you should be,
Yeah.
then yeah, whenever you don't stack up against whatever those expectations are, there's this cognitive dissonance of I don't, I'm not up to snuff. I'm I am fundamentally lacking because I have not achieved what I expected to. Uh, and I think the other thing that Eastern philosophy brings to the table is, okay, as we examine all of those stories, we begin to see that those are mostly stories that if
Mhm.
you were to take a video camera and just record the events of your life and call out what factually happened in the events of your life, 90% of what you think about what happened wouldn't show up on that videotape recording.
Mhm.
It would be what you overlay in terms of expectations, interpretations, etc. And so if you can notice that that's what's happening, then you have the opportunity to adjust how you interpret your life, how you feel about the things that are happening. And that is actually the way to get yourself to the point where both in your day in and day out and in the moments of accomplishment, you actually know how to feel peace and joy. And you
Yeah.
actually know how to feel accomplished because you've been doing it all along.
Yeah, I say this thing about, like, the way to not have the arrival fallacy is to not have a narrative self, and as I'm saying, I'm like, that's also sounds like I'd be lobotomized. Like, I wouldn't be human if I wasn't putting meaning on events, because it's not just
Sure.
experiencing life, it's like, what does this mean to me? What is the, like, color of being a human as distinct from a procedural robot that's just, like, having a string of events happen to it? Like, this is we are human because we have a narrative self that can put stuff onto experience, and it can get carried away. So, like, in coaching and for myself, and, like, when I think about how do you healthily hold arrival fallacy? Because as we talked about in the beginning of this episode, it's not all bad. It's not all bad to have hopes and dreams and to, like, aim for things and to assume that the things you're aiming for are gonna bring you joy. Like, don't do it if it's not fun, if you don't want it. And how do you hold that without making it be fragile? Without, like, if I don't get there, then there's problems with my self as a person, with the people around me, with um, you just crumble. Depression. Like, how do you get through it when it doesn't happen? And the true, like, solution is focusing on the process, enjoying the process, the whole journey, and blah, blah, blah. But we all know this, so why aren't we doing it? It's not like no one has ever said, like, the journey is the destination, and you're like,
Right.
yeah. Anyway, I just so what we often talk about is just noticing. I do a lot of parts work with people, so internal family systems work to notice, like, the part of you that wants that thing to happen. What does it really need? What value is it talking about? What need is unmet? What boundary has been violated that you need that thing to happen? Where are you lacking control? Where are you lacking agency? I teach to a model. It's called the self-determination theory, STD, autonomy, competence, and connection. And if we can maximize autonomy, competence, and connection in our lives, we're going to be doing okay. And so a lot of the, like, unlearning the burnout theories, or not theories, unlearning the burnout phrases that keep us in burnout, we can do that, but what do we replace it with? And that's, like, the two sides of burnout recovery are, like, yes, please, we're going to slow down, we're going to rest, we're going to regenerate, we're going to jettison the things that don't make sense for us anymore. But if we stop there, then we're just, like, speaking of lobotomized, then we're just like, we're sort of empty. Like, we've emptied ourselves, but we got to fill it in with things that bring us joy. And in the great pursuit of this work, we want to make sure that the things we're adding in are not just more arrival fallacies of, like, okay, cool, I rested. Now I want that other job. And I won't be happy
Right.
until I get that one because I left that toxic one. But, like, I want that one now. Or, like, I left my marriage and so I want that perfect partner. Or, like, unlearning this, like, sense of, if I have this thing, it will be okay. And so what we work through is, what does it feel like to notice the part of you that wants that thing, and what does it really want? What's unmet? Often it's a disconnection from values. Like, you're living a life that's not lining up with your values. And so I do this also with for people who really struggle with comparison and,
Right.
like, jealousy. These are just signals that there's some value that we hold dearly isn't, or experience that we hold dearly, internal, not like arrival fallacy, isn't honored in some way in our life. So for everyone who's, like, jealous of like the nice car driver or like the big house or the friend who seems to have it all together or, or the Instagram friend, what is it telling you about like what's actually missing in your life and what's one small step you can take today, right now, in this moment
Yeah.
to more align with your values? And that's it. And so it's a lot of values alignment. It's one small step. It's process over outcomes. And importantly, it is, and this is just a big theme of parts work. Parts work could be its own episode, but there are no bad parts. So we don't judge the parts. In fact, we welcome them. We thank them for giving us the messages they are giving us, like the internal parts of ourselves that, okay, there's something out of alignment here. Thanks. I wouldn't have known that. Like, maybe we can work on like how you tell me that so I don't get flooded with jealousy and rage. But like the message was really important. Thank you very much. And making sure that that part of you is seen and honored so that like you don't have to externalize or project your internal needs onto things that might and will very likely not ever arrive. Yeah. You had one more thing in Eastern philosophy land, sort of.
Yeah. Before we go there, before we
Mm.
transition to talking about me, I'm curious if,
Mm.
while being respectful of, confidentiality and coaching,
Yeah.
if there's an example that comes to mind that you could use to help me understand how parts work could show up as, a solution for burnout cycles.
Boy. One big one is the overwork cycle. Pancho, do you know anything about internal family systems or parts work?
I'm familiar with internal family systems, but I am by no means an expert. So, yeah, to talk to
So
me
the
like I don't know anything.
yeah, well, and like not everybody else is gonna know it too. The 101 is that we are all made up of parts that represent parts of ourselves. And we use the language of like a part of me wants this, a part of me thinks this, but another part of me thinks this. These are real like true biophysiological and neurological instincts that we can, when we say like we're flooded by rage, just putting some names on these experiences and oftentimes acknowledging like they are coming from learned behaviors as children or just in our lives, or just in our truly like our adult lives. This is how we stay safe. All of these parts, and this is the theory of internal family systems and no bad parts, is every single one of these impulses, no matter how destructive they appear on the outside, is trying to keep us safe. It's trying to bring us a sense of peace. And I'm talking even the ones, and this is not something we go into in coaching. This is saved for therapy. This is a therapeutic process, but there is a world of coaching, which I'll explain in a second. But there are no bad parts to the extent we include the parts that drive alcoholics to drink, drug users to drugs, and suicidal ideation and completion. All of these parts, even those, are trying to keep us safe from something.
Yeah.
And at the center, so there are three types of parts. Two of the three types are what we call protectors. Two of the types are called protectors. One is called the manager, and they're sort of like the perstickety adult in charge who has a lot of opinions about how things should get done. And then there's the firefighters who are like, I don't give a fuck about what they think. I just will not let us feel things that I don't like. So those are the parts that drive you to drink, that flood you with rage, that numb you out, that disassociate you, that cause you to be really sleepy when you get stressed. The ones that are like, goodbye, we don't want any of this. I don't care. What about the consequences? Goodbye. Unsafe to feel these things. But the managers are like the part that's perfectionist, the one that's like the inner critic, the overwork part. Those are the ones, firefighters and managers, that I work with in coaching. The ones I don't work with in coaching and make sure that folks are really well supported around, either through their own therapist or other supports, are exiles. These two parts, the protectors, they are protecting you from exiles. The parts of you that have usually like really young parts of you that have really
Uh,
deeply unmet needs And they are so afraid that this needy, whiny little part of you is going to take over and embarrass you or do something destructive. And they're terrified of it. And they'll do whatever they need to do to keep that one out of the way. And in the center of all these parts is not a part, and it's the capital S self, which is truly like the center of the system and it's the true adult in charge. But it's a self that there are 8 C's associated with it, and I won't be able to name them all, but confident, compassionate, creative, many others. But like when you're in self, you feel like no part is in charge. You can see them all, but they're not running the show. They are not driving the bus. They're in their seats where they should be. So that's the 101. In coaching, one cycle I work with a lot is the manager firefighter cycle of overwork. So it starts with truly usually a sense of I'm not good enough, and that's coming from the exile, but like you get a sense of like I am only worth it if I am productive. So you get into like overwork, perfectionism, just drive. This is like The Shining. Jack Nicholson, like all work and no play makes Jack a dull boy. Just work. And then because that's not normal, that's not human, that's not fun.
Yeah.
The firefighters come in and are like, fuck this. I hate this. Let's
Time to
party.
get stoned.
Let's play. Or
Yeah.
let's spin out and like you get paralyzed. And then you're like, I don't know what to do. And you're in functional freeze, or you're just like doom scrolling, or just like you can't get out of it. So then you don't do the work. And then the managers come in to shame you and to be like, the inner critic is like, you didn't do that. You didn't do the work. And now everyone's going to think you're a dummy and you're lazy and you're selfish. So do the work. And you're like, I got to do the work. And you do the work and it starts again. So we work with all those parts, pull them out, see them. There are many, many others. Inner critic is a huge energy suck. And a hallmark of burnout is exhaustion. And a lot of it comes from these sneaky parts running the show.
Yeah.
Fascinating. Yeah.
Jinx.
I know. Okay. Tell me.
Yeah.
You've been teasing it. What's the second one?
Right. Well, the second one is, and this actually comes back to something that you said at the very beginning of the episode. You were talking about people who won the lottery or people who were quadriplegics, right? And
6 months
surveying
later.
those people 6 months later to see what their emotional baseline was. Were they objectively devastated if they'd lost, their ability to, get around in the way that they used to and to use their bodies how they used to? Or were they, everything was great and my life is now perfect that I'm a millionaire if they won the lottery? And that's not how it plays out. They ended up basically being at the same level of happiness that they had before the event. I think part of that comes back to this idea that like we are today how we are usually, and we habituate those things. So in the book Stumbling on Happiness, which is where I learned about that study, um, the whole point is that we're terrible at effective forecasting, and that's with an A, effective forecasting, right? Knowing how something in the future will impact our levels of happiness or fulfillment. We're really bad at it. If we sit there and just imagine ourselves into the future with something having changed, we're not very good at determining how we'll feel about it. A tried and true way to get better information about how happy something will make us is to find people who are similar to us, who have already been there and done that, and to interview them about what it was like to have that be a part of their lives and how their lives turned out once they'd achieved that outcome or gone through that process. So It's a way of stepping outside ourselves, realizing we're not individual, unique snowflakes. We actually have a lot in common with most other people. And if I find somebody who is a lot like me, who's already done that, then what it was like for them is a much better indicator of what it will be like for me than if I just sit there and imagine myself into that future
Mm.
scenario.
Ooh,
So
that's a good one.
so that's something that I bring to my coaching. It's a very simple tool, right? Go find somebody, go find a mentor, go find a sponsor, in a professional setting. Find someone either in your organization who's not your manager, find somebody in another organization, and get to know that person. Ask them how they got to where they are and what it's been like. That's going to give you a good understanding of what it's going to be like for you. The other thing that I really like to focus on is it's not rocket science. You don't have to make it more complex to fix it. And so when I work with people who are dealing with something like arrival fallacy or who are feeling like I'm not getting fulfillment out of my job, out of my general life situation, the dynamic and balance between work and home life, um, the direction that my career's taking. And it's not the thing itself, but it's more them. It's coming back to this thing of I've kind of forgotten how to feel joy and fulfillment in my life. Then it's a matter of coming back to what are you doing on a day-to-day basis? And it's usually actually a lot of these things that you're talking about, the
Yeah,
manager and the firefighter behaviors, right? It's a lot of like, I go, 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 and then 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock hits and I'm over it. And so then I go and I make myself a huge dinner, which is a way to disassociate.
for sure.
And then I go and sit on the couch and watch Love is Blind for 3 hours, which is also a way to disassociate. And I know objectively that living in this way does not make me happy. And I remember a time in my life when I was meditating, when I was exercising every day, when I was getting, you know, 7 to 9 hours of sleep, where I was a better version of myself. And I don't know how to get back to that. That's foundational work, right? And so it's the James Clear talks about like we don't
Mm.
rise to the level of our aspirations, we fall to the level of our systems. Those systems
Oh,
are habits. And so when things get hard, your day-to-day operating system, your day-to-day like this is just what I do, this is just how I think. These are the emotions that are in my emotional spectrum. All of that falls back to what are the systems you've put in place for yourself to
yeah,
result in the person that you're going to be on a day-to-day basis.
yeah.
So it's a lot of habits work, and habits work is really easy, but it also takes a lot of deliberate dedication and patience. You
Mm.
have to, go habit by habit, and you have to recognize that at, the neurological level, there needs to be an overlay. Like there's an old habit, there's a neural pathway for that habit that's never going away. We have to build a neural pathway that overrides that one and gets you to do something else that's actually going to be good for you. When I feel stressed, I overeat. Okay, that's what happens. What would you prefer to do instead when you feel stressed? Go for a walk. Okay, let's start working on that, right? And so it's just like very simple stuff, but it's just so much easier to do when you have somebody there to like walk alongside you in that process. And I know that that's true for
Oh,
me.
totally.
Um, so yeah, those are kind of the two things that I would bring to the table for somebody who is dealing with arrival fallacy and has this undercurrent of fundamental dissatisfaction with their lives. Instead of waiting for that dissatisfaction to be solved when you get to the destination, when you finally arrive, let's start shifting the foundation of who and how you are in a very simple way so that the outcome isn't as important. and you get to be a more effective, happier, better rested, more capable version of yourself on a regular basis. And then you get rid of that cognitive dissonance, like the inner critic. It doesn't show up anymore because you're not behaving in a way that goes against yourself. You've simplified your life. You cut out the stuff that doesn't, that like is incongruent with the person you want to be. And you look at it and you go, oh, yeah, today was pretty good. I did stuff that I feel good about. And it feels really basic and simple, but it all feels really good. Like nothing
It
fancy
is.
happened.
Oh my God. I think one of the biggest differences between when I was in deep burnout and now, which I'll never really say I'm not like I just like I don't know, alcoholics are never done. Like they're always in recovery.
Sure. Totally.
I feel like I'll always be in burnout recovery. Like I walk that edge and
Yeah.
I have to be careful because like I know I'm pretty prone to it. Um, but one of the biggest differences is that the mental chatter is around inner critic stuff gone. And it used to be
Yeah.
really loud, but like it doesn't show up. Like having done the work to figure out some of these tricks around like arrival fallacy and the stories that perpetuate it m- make me so much more aligned with my values so that the inner critic doesn't have a chance to come in because I'm like, nah, bro, we're running a good process. We're fine. We're fine.
Yeah. Yeah.
It just
Even if
doesn't
I'm
show
at
up. Yeah.
80% of the way there, that's more than good enough compared to where I was 6 months ago. The inner critic doesn't really have ground to stand on and,
Yeah.
like have any sort of weight to what it says.
Yeah. I got plenty
Yeah.
of other voices I'm working on, but that one, that one's a lot
Yeah.
less.
Yeah.
All right. What hasn't been said that needs to be said?
Looking at my notes, I think we live in a culture and a society in which achievement is celebrated.
Mm.
Accomplishment, as much as you and I can sit here on our soapbox and say, oh, yeah, process is more important than outcome. The reality out there is outcomes are also really important. And if you are somebody who is too focused, so focused on process that you stop caring about outcomes entirely,
Mm.
you may actually live a very satisfying, peaceful life, but you may not achieve um, success in the way that we define it currently. Um, and so there's a time and a place, right? Like arrival fallacy, the one upside to it is like you get shit done
Yeah.
because you're not discounting the goal. If you overcorrect in the other direction, there is the danger that you get to the point where you discount the goal
Hmm.
and you say it doesn't matter.
Hmm.
Getting shit done is important sometimes.
Hmm.
And so
Yeah.
so as much as I think the way that big picture we all need to correct is in the direction of releasing control, letting go of the outcome, focusing on what it's like to be me right now, what it's like to be in process, enjoying the value to be had of being in process, accurately recognizing the cost of what it's like to go for a goal in process, recognizing I'm giving up, the opportunity cost of making this my goal is I don't make these other things my goal. So that's more important if we want to find ourselves in a more balanced place. But if we overcorrect, then we lose the importance of a goal and what a goal can do for us. Um, so I think that would be the last thing I'd say is, there is a there.
Yeah.
It's just that you don't want to make it the entire framework with which you try to achieve joy and peace in your life. Is like when I get to this thing, that's when I can expect to be joyful and peaceful because it doesn't work that way.
Or make your process the goal.
Totally.
Like, if that's one way around it. But
Yeah.
that's a great
Yeah.
point. Yeah.
What about you? What's
Um, this all arrival fallacy is like I coach around like in general the behaviors that are driving burnout. What emotions they preventing you from feeling?
Mhm.
Um, and I think that's just the question I ask when it comes to like, okay, you really want this to happen and really feel like everything's going to change when it does. What does that, if that weren't true, what would you have to experience? What feeling would be underneath that? And what does that say? And so one more Joe Hudson reference, that quote I think about all the time. That joy is the matriarch of all emotions. You know, she will not come into a house where her children aren't welcome. We can't find and celebrate the joy, like really feel it of the arrival if we haven't felt the other gross, gnarly emotions that are underneath our focus on the arrival. Um, I mean, not to be too reductive to like it's just about the feelings because it's not, but it's a big part of the pathway to actually enjoying your life is finding a way to understand what are you avoiding and how can you feel that safely and fully.
yeah. Mm.
All right, friend. This was a good one. I
Yeah.
can't wait to do all the other ones.
We've got so many topics to cover. Yeah.
Just to Danny Kahneman. Yeah. Wait,
Totally.
next one, fundamental attribution error. That'll be
Let's do it.
fun because I get to
Yeah.
talk about George Carlin. And it's not the 7 words you can't say on television quote. It's another one.
Yeah. I'm excited for that. It's the most cynical take on the fundamental attribution error. But we'll stop teasing to it and we'll
Okay.
get to it in another episode.
Next week.
All
All
right.
right. Sounds good.
Thanks, friend.
Night night.
Bye.
Bye.